Now, some established players down at Geelong are in the news at the moment. In fact, I saw some vision of the Cats training yesterday, and like a lot of clubs at the moment, they're already absolutely humming. Some Bailey Smith vision, like he's just running 180-metre sprints, basically. Give, get, looks supremely fit already. Now, he won't be the new captain of Geelong, but I think there will be. These were the. Tell me if I'm looking into this too much, Adam Cooney. Joel Selwood was the captain forever and a day. Patrick Dangerfield was the obvious replacement and has done the job very well. But this was Paddy speaking yesterday ahead of a big session at the Cats.
It's about the right person for the job for next year. So I don't think it's anyone's to own for any long period of time.
Specifically a question around, you're putting your hand up for the captaincy in again, and his first words were, "I'm not sure." So I think if he's saying that, I don't know. Am I reading it wrong? I think there's about to be a changeover, a handover.
No, I think it's a good pickup. I think it's a good pickup from you. If it was 90% sure that he was going to do it, he would just say, "Yeah, I'm keen for the job next year." He's obviously thought about it. They've had discussions as to who could possibly take over, and don't be surprised if they make an announcement in the new year there. But there's an easy one. It's an easy transition to Tom Stewart, or maybe they go with co-captains with a younger player that, the next generation that is going to take over. They could look to a Max Holmes or someone like that to share the duties, or even put him to vice captain, so he's in the leadership group and he knows how it all works.
Do you reckon Max Holmes could be a captain in time?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think, was it Chris Scott who said he will be the best player in the competition?
Yeah.
At some stage. He seems like a pretty level-headed guy. Someone's got to do it.
And Cam Mooney had him in the top, I think he said 10, but he might have even gone 6. I can't remember, but right at the point end of the competition, provided those strings can hold up next year. Yeah, he had him right up there. He's a massive, massive fan. But
that is a big call.
Yeah, Tom Stewart, 31. He looks like a logical one. And then, maybe then they go to a Max Holmes after a couple more seasons under the belt. Who knows? But what has your time in the game taught you about those real star-laden established captains handing over and remaining on the list? So, like, we mentioned some of these names earlier. Like, I think it's an absolute no-brainer for Paddy and the club. But Scott Pendlebury has done it to unbelievable success. It was the right decision for him. Mm-hmm. Dane Zorko, you mentioned, your Hamilton Island mate. He was All-Australian this year and relinquished the captaincy. So Travis Boak did it a while back. Sloan DeDorsa, we mentioned. There's many, many others. Like Paddy will be 35 next April. And has done, 337 games, premierships, Brownlows, stack of All-Australians. Just usher the next guy in, free yourself up, help him come through. Like, what has your experience told you about those established guys handing it over?
Well, I don't think it matters too much to the players
and
to the playing group too much, because there is there's a leadership group that are all seen to be pretty similar in how they lead and their thoughts and the way that they distribute messages to the group and to some of the players. And some have 6 or 7 in their leadership group, some have 3. I've found in my experience that the less number of people in a leadership group, the better, because then you get to the point quicker. You get to the direction of where you want to go without everyone having to think, oh, geez, I'm in the leadership group. I actually have to put my hand up and say something here. And a meeting that can be 8 minutes goes for an hour. So I find if it's more streamlined, it works better and the message is clearer. And less confusing across that. So it doesn't matter too much to the players. It's just, and even the inspirational messages, pre-game, you get the group in, your froth and bubble stuff. I can't, the only pre-game speeches that I remember from a captain are the ones that they've stuffed up. And everyone has just burst out laughing because they've got halfway through and either forgot what they're talking about or tried something different.
Can you remember one?
I remember Griff had a couple. Griff's had a couple that he's just got halfway through and just completely lost it. And gone, boys, I don't know what I'm talking about here. Let's just go out and get them. And they're the ones where everyone starts laughing. And Matty Boyd had a couple where he tried to recite a couple of famous quotes and just completely butchered them.
Fool me once.
Yeah. And they're the ones where you just go out and you're probably a little bit more relaxed. That's why we've seen.
But that's the modern way, isn't it?
Some teams have a gag, the practical joker before a game, which can help sort of ease the tension a little bit. But the captaincy stuff is there's a lot of leaders out there without the official C next to their
Yeah.
name. It's
And that's the thing,
more
isn't
a
it?
full club thing rather than the players look up to this guy because he's the captain. Sometimes it's not often the way. And we went to a few years ago. There was a number of captains where they probably wouldn't have been in the best 8 or 9 players in their team, but they spoke well, they presented well in the media, so they went down that path for a little bit. But obviously, Danger can do both and does both really well.
Yeah.
If he's had enough and wants a bit more time at home, or so I'm just having a look at him now. His beard's not too grey, starting to get a little bit in the in the sides. So that's a surefire sign that it's time to start relaxing.
Cats will wait until the season launch to announce, says 596. Max Holmes a good chance to skip past Tom Stewart. Just that's some point of views out there. Any other captaincy changes, says Brody? I think the Saints changed captaincy this season too. Jack Steele to Cal Wilkie with a question mark coming through as well. Yeah, we'll read out those texts if you've got any other captaincy changes you think could or should happen as well. And they're always going to walk taller with Dangerfield out on the field. I mean, that's never going to change, is it? So I think it's
still one of their most important players.
Yeah.
Which is frightening in a way. But have a look at there's some vision here. Bailey Smith, as you mentioned, running that mullet is just flowing nicely. He looks to be in tip-top condition. I've had to unfollow him on Instagram. It's just too much for me.
Yeah.
It's too much thirst trap. That's what the kids call it these days.
Sorry, too much what?
Thirst trap.
Thirst
it's like when you
trap.
post seductive pictures of yourself, with no top on and all sorts of things. It's a bit
too
of a
much for
thirst
you.
trap.
Okay.
The defining moment where I had to unfollow him was when he did the ice baths and he got out of the ice baths and he was in his underpants. And I thought, that's enough for me.
That's enough. Hey, what sort of
can't
difference are you
handle
going to
this
make to their
anymore.
side, though? He could make a significant difference.
Well,
I think.
at his best, definitely. We saw that blistering final series that he's had, goal kicking, mid, line breaker. I'm not sure if he plays on a wing or if he plays inside at the Cats. I mean, if Guthrie is fully fit, he comes back in to the midfield group. That Ollie Dempsey going up to the wing, I think, was a great move for them later in the year for the Cats. Played some great footy up there. There's Mitch Duncan has patrolled that other wing for the best part of probably 15 years now. But that other wing maybe could be Bailey Smith if they want some outside run up and back. But I think he plays his best footy inside mid.
I'd be getting him inside every day because with Max, they're the points of difference in that midfield for me. And I know Paddy Dangerfield's still got that acceleration, but just these guys are going to play the vast majority of weeks, and Paddy, we probably can't rely on him to do that anymore. So
you can probably throw Blitzarves out onto the other wing.
Yeah.
He can run up and down all day. I'd like to see Bailey Smith get that inside and then go forward because pretty dangerous, isn't he?
And Scotty of Shepparton's text in, Sam, I think you misread Coons. It hasn't dragged on at GWS. It's been dealt with. It's just that the media want to pull someone out and scapegoat them.
Yeah,
the club's
blokes
dealt
like
with
you.
it. They've explained it to the AFL, done and dusted. Why do the media have to make it a big deal because no admin has spoken about it? Well, Scotty, this is how it works. If when it initially happened, and instead of silence as it was for a long period of time, and in fact, it was the GWS Giants AFLW captain and coach who addressed it first. And there was silence from the men's football department. And in fact, the administration, if they'd actually got in front of it with a press conference, then it would all be done and dusted by now. And it would mean that people like Tom Green, who were doing routine preseason press conferences, then wouldn't need to be re-asked about it. But because they haven't actually got out in front of it and they haven't done that in the aftermath, that's why it's going to linger. So that's just the way the media works. If they feel like they haven't quite got their pound of flesh out of it, then it's going to linger. Now, it's not going to linger forever, but I think it's lingered for far longer than it otherwise would have needed to. And why the club itself hasn't come out and said something is beyond me. After there were suspensions, there were fines. I'm not sure why that is. Nevertheless, Tom Green, he was asked about it, and this is what he had to say. Not good enough was some of the comments that Tom Green said. He said, there's guys who going into the next season are going to miss games. It was a real error of judgment on all of our behalf, and it's been a real learning curve. on and off the field, as he said, it's been an off-season where we had to learn a lot and had to get a lot better. Green himself was fined $5,000 just for failing to show leadership in that situation as well, as Toby Green, Lockie Whitfield, Sam Taylor, Connor Ide and Harry Perryman on top of the match suspensions.
Wasn't there, which is possibly a worse judgment error, that an umpire dressed up only a couple of weeks after?
That was grand final week, so the GWS stuff hadn't become news to the best of my knowledge, but it emerged after, if that makes sense.
So that was before?
Yeah, before the Giant
Happened
stuff
before,
became public.
after?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I think you know what I'm saying. He dressed up as Osama bin Laden,
I think
didn't
he did.
Yeah, he did, which is probably ill-advised.
What would you dress up as? What would be the furthest you would be willing to go?
No, I don't know. What sort of a question is that?
Well, I'll just, it's a quan.
I'd probably
Question without notice.
I'd probably like to do what Maurice Rioli Jr.'s done and inherited the number 17 at the famous Richmond Football Club.
What a segue.
As worn, of course, by Maurice Rioli Sr., he's a brilliant father who played in the guts for the Tigers for so long, won a couple of Jack Dyer medals, won a Norm Smith medal. And this is good. These are the things we love. And we never question why sons don't want to inherit, the numbers of their famous fathers. Like I always think of Gary Ablett Jr., who made his number his own number. But, geez, when they take on, there's a lot of romanticism in that. I love that. I think it's magnificent.
That is. It's beautiful, isn't it? I love the romanticism of the father-son as well, and also going that step further and wearing the same jumper as the old man. Some do shy away from it, don't they? They want to sort of form their own identity, which is fine in itself. You don't want to live under the old boy's shadow forever. But yeah, that's a great story. Putting the number 17 on. Hopefully you can do the same and win a couple of best and fairest in the guts.
Just about everything. Maurice Rioli Sr. won. No doubt about that.
A little bit to live up to then.
So 17, the same number as his late father, Jack Dyer as well. Of course, probably the most famous player in the history of that football club, wore the 17 as well. I find myself watching a bit of, not yelling, but some very vocal. I found myself watching the Western Bulldogs have a run around yesterday just at the Whitten Oval.
The newly refurbished kennel.
I've got to say, it is...
How does it look?
It is unbelievably good in there. It is incredible. Like they've redone, obviously, all the stands and the training facility, and they got the new cafe in there. And there was quite a large contingent of fans watching.
Yeah, they always is a few at the cafe.
I don't think I've ever seen the ground look as good as it did, though. It is not a blade of grass out of place. They were all there training. Jamara wasn't there. He was crook, I'm told. So he was unavailable, but everyone else looked fit, looked roaring to go. They looked magnificent. They had a time trial too, 2K Sufferfest.
I did see that. I think it's one of the most interesting points of the pre-season, and one of the most, because there's not too many interesting sort of this. Who's burning up the track. But the only real thing I'm interested in pre-season is who finishes in the top 3 or 4 in a 2K time trial. And a young fella took it out yesterday at the kennel.
Luke Kennedy. So he was pick 62. That was the Dogs' last pick in the national draft. He won it. So these kids coming through now, I think the Dogs have drafted some runners specifically, but most of the kids coming through now, they can all handle themselves in this part of it. I think this is the least of their worries.
I think it is interesting how a kid can come in, and we saw the same at Essendon.
I think that happened last year too.
First year player comes in and wins a 2K time trial. Now, does that mean that he's fitter than some of the other players? Not necessarily, because I found that, and you do a lot of work when you're 17, 18 now to get yourself to a level, and they probably think, well, I've got to get myself to peak fitness here so I can make an impression. But what happens with those players and first-year players, which is why they never do 100% of the preseason, is how tough the preseasons get, backing up session after session after session. So, and that's where you get that the real fitness and your real gains and your benefits from, is that some of the kids like this Kennedy, I guarantee you if he gets 3 or 4 weeks into preseason and if he did every session. So Bont finished second.
Bont was second. Cody Waitman was third, by the way.
Which is great for the Dogs that Marcus Bontempelli at his age is still fronting up and feeling like he needs to finish in the top couple in the 2K. He could probably sit mid-pack at this stage and then, burn them off in January and February. But it's the hardest thing is to keep backing up session after session. And some of these kids who come in and he's probably thinking, "Oh, gee, I'm the fittest guy at the Dogs." I guarantee you, once he gets into sort of January and Feb, he'll just be wanting to stay in bed because he'll be sore, he'll be tired, thinking, "How the hell do these guys do this every day?" It takes 3 or 4 years to be able to get to that level, to be able to keep going and fronting up and getting fitter and stronger every session without having to be too sore and managed through the first couple. But well done to the young fella on winning it.
I reckon some of these kids are up and about now too because they've had the combine and they've been, they had to have themselves in the shop window for a while, so they're at peak condition. One thing that why don't they ever post or rarely post the times for the 2K time trial or any time trial for that matter?
One of my bugbears.
Why is there no time?
Frustrates the life out of me. Social media teams, they put everything up now. They put a full day up of this kid getting out of bed, and they follow them around all day in their car. And that's the only thing that we really want to know.
I don't think
the times of the 2Ks.
I don't think we should be having a go at the social media team though.
No, there'd be the clubs and the fitness trying to keep it in house.
Surely it's the football department saying don't let the.
We're
times
not leaking, but I want to know. I want to compare. Who's running what, because I think back in my day when I was at the Dogs, I don't reckon we used to do a 3.2 around Princess Park, so that's a bit
that
longer.
track was a nasty.
And then we had a couple of victims on the back straight.
A couple of shortcuts.
Once or twice, there was a couple that took the shortcut before my time. The shortcuts were taken, and there were coaches sitting up in the trees that caught a couple of them out. One player,
Terry Wallace, was a tree climber.
That was before my time. Peter Rowe was the coach in my first year, but we've had a couple down the home stretch as well. Really sort of break down. Some gut issues we've had for one player who just didn't quite make it to the finish
Plumbing
line.
issues. Plumbing
had
issues.
To just duck off quickly once he crossed the line. Who was sort of waddling his way home.
A
little bit running down the legs. So
no, that's enough.
That's how hard you push yourself in these pre-seasons. So 3.2, 2K. I don't think we had anyone that got under 6 minutes at the Dogs. Paddy Ambrose and maybe Brent Stanton used
How
to
did you go with these?
In the 5s.
You would have hated them.
I generally, at that stage of the year,
Mid-pack?
just had a niggle. Or just coming off a big week,
The bib on.
loading week on the track. So
Sam
I didn't do a lot of them.
Sam Mitchell never won a time trial, says Joey in Ocean Grove. Means nothing.
Yeah, well, it doesn't mean nothing.
But it's not everything.
It also doesn't mean everything. Yeah. But what it does do is, if you're a young kid, it just gets you front of mind for the coach. So if your kid's comes in, you finish mid-pack, no one notices you. You get noticed if you're at the back 3 or 4, and you get noticed if you're in the front 5.
And like a lot of AFL clubs, I'd imagine this time of year, Bevo, the senior coach, very hands-off, just watching and observing. Certainly didn't take charge of anything that I saw while I was there. And gee, my man, Rory Lobb looked good, though. Next year's All-Australian centre-half-back.
Yeah.
He looked like he was cut.
Inspired move, wasn't it?
He looked really good.
No one thought that he could go back and do that.
Nope.
There was one man that believed in him, and it was Bevo.
Yeah. Well, it was real break glass in case of emergency job in the end. So I'm not sure he was his first
It was either
pick.
there or back to GWS next year.
100%. But yeah, you're right. It's worked out spectacularly well thus far.
Where do you reckon the Dogs are at next year? They've still got another crack at winning it. I reckon they're in the
big year. I think
the window for them for the final time.
Some big decisions obviously will be made next year because Bevo going into the final year of his contract, and they want more than an elimination final exit.